What progress has been made, in your opinion, with regards to repairing that seriously damaged relationship between Moscow and Washington?
Well, there was one concrete step that was announced, and that is the rollover for 5 years of a nuclear arms treaty, a new start, as it's called. So that was one step in particular. And the fact that they've decided, as you mentioned, to open this discussion on cybersecurity. Even the Russians say they were taken aback when there was that hack of that pipeline in the United States, the Colonial Pipeline, a short while back at the beginning of last month. It shows that there's the known nobles and the unknown nobles, and perhaps it's become a little too volatile for both sides. We heard Joe Biden in his press conference talk about basic rules of the road we can all agree upon, saying he would revisit it in several months to see how it goes. Obviously, the Americans have been burned in the past by raising expectations only to have them dashed. This time, words like pragmatic, self-interest coming up as much as possible in Biden's remarks.
Did you get the impression, listening to what both of them said about their talks, that they're really going to change anything, that anything is going to be markedly different, or was it just a bit of a spectacle and perhaps the momentum will fizzle out?
A summit is always a spectacle. After all, it's supposed to be the culmination of lots of back-channel talks and hours, days, years sometimes of negotiations on important matters. The relationship had been so damaged in recent years that it gotten to the point where the usual channels had been reduced to their bare minimum, far less even than at the worst times of the Cold War. And in an age when there's always so much unpredictability nowadays, it proves, as Joe Biden said, too much for both sides. Again, it's the question of whether or not, and in fact, he used the expression at one point, the proof will be in the pudding after that press conference. Should be pointed out, the bar for success here was very low after that Helsinki summit, which ended in a joint press conference where Donald Trump sided with Vladimir Putin against his own intelligence services. Joe Biden certainly cleared it with flying colors.
Absolutely, a very different style adopted. And I mean, I'm reading some of the analysis out there. You know, people are making comparisons with historic sets of talks between Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev in the mid-1980s. I mean, I'm wondering, from your opinion, being there and covering this, do you think, first of all, that's a bridge too far by way of a comparison? And secondly, did you feel like you were witnessing something quite historic happening there in Geneva today?
To be blunt, I think no. I mean, when Mikhail Gorbachev and Ronald Reagan in 1987, or earlier, in fact, met in Geneva, you really had the sense that this was a seminal moment of history. We didn't know, of course, that the Cold War would end shortly thereafter, but there was the sense that this was markedly different from anything that had been seen since the Soviet Union had ever even existed. Here, it's just about, as you say, reconnecting after so long. Of course, time will tell where this leads. Most interesting was what Joe Biden said at one point. You know, Russia, you've got a huge thousands of miles of border with China. Is it in your interest to have a new Cold War with the United States? The allusion there to perhaps there was a different battle that still lies ahead.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for sharing that with us. From Geneva, France 24's François Picard. Thank you very much indeed.